Have you ever stopped to wonder who decided you had to learn algebra and history and art? Well, turns out there's a master plan behind it all. It's called general education, and it's basically the blueprint that decides what we learn, why we learn it, and how it all comes together to shape us. So let's take a closer look at that blueprint. Yeah, think back to your school days for a second. Were you ever sitting in a literature class just wondering, how does this connect to coding? Or why on earth you had to take both? That feeling of why am I learning this? That's exactly what we're diving into. And there's a very deliberate reason for that mix, and it goes way, way beyond just passing exams. And here it is. This is the big idea. General education is built on the belief that a good education shouldn't just train you for one specific job. Nope. It's designed to build a complete person. It's all about creating this solid foundation of knowledge, skills, and even values that you can then build on for the rest of your life. Okay, so if it's not just about getting an A in biology, what's the real endgame here? This gets us to the actual goals of the whole system. I mean, look at this. The vision here is pretty huge. We're not just talking about intellectual stuff like problem solving. It's about building a whole person, promoting ethical values, understanding different cultures, and learning how to communicate effectively. The goal is to get you ready to be an active, thoughtful citizen and a creative, well-rounded individual. Now, an approach like this didn't just appear out of thin air. To really get what our system is about today, we've got to look back and see how the very idea of education has changed over time. Just look at this timeline. Way back in ancient times, the focus was totally holistic, mind, body, and spirit. Then you get to the medieval period, and it shifts heavily towards religious learning. The modern era brings in the classic 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. And today, well, we've kind of circled back to a model that tries to blend it all, holistic, multidisciplinary, and really focused on values. And this is such a key turning point, especially in India. Under British colonial rule, the goal of education was super narrow, basically to create administrators and clerks. But after independence in 1947, the entire mission changed. The new focus was on building a nation of informed, democratic citizens, and that required a much, much broader educational foundation. All right, so where does all that history leave us today? Well, in the modern world, you can really boil down the purpose of general education into 2 massive essential jobs for society. So on one hand, education is all about human resource development. It gives people the skills they need for jobs, which of course drives the economy. That's the practical workforce building side of things. But on the other hand, it's an incredibly powerful tool for social change. It raises awareness about rights, it helps reduce inequality, and it fosters a sense of national unity. It's literally building both our economy and our society at the same time. But, and you knew there was a but coming. Like any grand blueprint, the design on paper doesn't always match the final building. The system, for all its amazing goals, is facing some really serious challenges. Which leads us to the most important question, right? We have this incredible vision for what education should be, but is it actually delivering on that promise for every single person out there? Well, the answer, unfortunately, is it's complicated. And these hurdles are no joke. There's this huge gap in access to quality education between rural and urban areas, not to mention the growing digital divide. Curriculums are often pretty outdated, focusing more on memorizing facts than on real understanding. And all of this is made worse by a lack of funding, a shortage of trained teachers, and just immense pressure on students. This divide between private and public schools really highlights the inequality. Yeah, private schools can often offer better resources, but their crazy high costs create a massive barrier for most people. Meanwhile, public schools are the absolute backbone of access for the majority, but they often struggle with not enough funding, which just widens that gap between the haves and the have-nots. So, with all these challenges on the table, what's being done? Well, there's actually a major effort underway to fundamentally rebuild and strengthen this foundation for the future. The big answer is India's National Education Policy, or NEP 2020. And this isn't just some minor update. It's a massive, ambitious plan designed to tackle the very problems we just talked about. The goal is to completely overhaul the system right from the ground up. And you can really see the strategy here. The old structure is out, replaced by a new one that focuses more on those crucial early childhood years. The policy is tearing down the rigid walls between arts and sciences, pushing for a more holistic way of learning.
It's bringing in practical, vocational skills way earlier. And this is huge. It shifts the focus away from just memorizing stuff toward flexible, critical thinking. Each reform is a direct answer to one of those cracks in the old foundation.
When it's all said and done, it comes down to this. This quote really nails what's at stake. Getting education right isn't just some academic exercise. It is absolutely fundamental to the nation's progress and to creating a more just and fair society for everyone.
So, as we wrap this up, I'll leave you with this thought. This system is being redesigned as we speak. But what about you? If you had a totally blank slate, what is the one single thing you would change? What do you believe education needs to do better? It's a question we're thinking about.